I have no clue why this movie is called Marriage Story. It should be called Divorce Story. Marriage Story stars Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, and they're these two people that are married and their relationship is falling apart, and this movie is about them getting a divorce and going their separate ways and all the cruddy things that go along with that. Now, to start off with the things that I liked about Marriage Story, the best thing that this movie has going for it is the acting. Scarlett Johansson plays this wife and mother very, very well. All of her scenes are incredibly well acted. There are a lot of really long shots where she just has these monologues where she might be telling someone about her story and kind of the problems that she's facing in her marriage. And they're just these really long takes, and you're like, geez, she nails the whole thing, gets all of the emotional cues and what she's saying. Same with Adam Driver. Adam Driver doesn't have as much as an emotional performance. His are a little bit more selective, and that's kind of generally, I think, correct. Women tend to be a little bit more emotional in relationships than guys do, but when guys kind of have their moments like Adam Driver does in this movie, and the two of these characters together actually have pretty good chemistry when they're fighting, which is a lot of the movie. It is convincing. And then there's also a lot of times where they're trying to look at the way that they're going to be going in their divorce, and they're trying to look at it in a very kind of methodical standpoint, trying to make it as easy as possible in many ways. And these two characters alongside of each other have great chemistry. When they're having a good time and they're enjoying each other, you're there and you're rooting for their relationship to continue. And then there are times when they are obviously not happy with each other. They're very angry, they're fighting, they're saying things that they really shouldn't be saying to each other. And in those moments, you're there too, you feel it, and you just kind of get wrapped up in all of their problems, and you just kind of feel bad for their relationship, and especially for their kid in this situation. And as far as the rest of the movie goes, I think this movie is very well shot. The lighting is very good. It's very, very subtle, and it's also very bright pictures, very exposing to whoever's on camera. They just feel very vulnerable for the majority of it. And then there's also a great supporting cast behind our two lead characters in this movie. You have Ray Liotta, you have Laura Dern. These are two very, very high caliber actors, and they both do a great job in this movie in both of their roles. And to conclude my positives for this movie, you can just tell that the movie makers were just trying to go for authenticity in this movie. These two characters that we're focused on are very flawed. They have a lot of issues and problems. You see a lot of it in the movie, and you hear about most of the other stuff in the movie as well. You're focused in on the part where they're trying to separate, but most about what they're saying has already happened in the past. You're not really witnessing most of it, but you're hearing it from their perspective. So when you're hearing them share their feelings, it's going to feel a little bit more authentic than most romance stories, but I think that also can turn into a flaw in a lot of areas in the narrative in the story. And from here is probably a good part to transition into my negatives of this film. Now, I said in the positive that this movie does have authentic characters, and that's true, but they're authentically disgusting people. Now, I'm not saying that people within a marriage or just people in general are not flawed and don't have issues like these characters have. I'm just saying that when I'm sitting down to watch a movie and I want to see, something real, I know this movie is going to be about divorce, but at least show me these people feeling like the hurt of divorce and possibly feeling like a lot of regret. I feel like I didn't see a ton of regret from either of these characters. They were just kind of in sorrow because of the problems that the divorce was creating in their life and the kind of issues and pressures it put on them in their social spheres and where they're going to end up living and then how they're going to maintain custody with their kid. It didn't even seem like they were focused on the kid and his future or wanting the best for him. It was all motivated by their own selfish interests like it was in their marriage. I just thought that having these two characters be so unlikable makes it really hard to look back after this movie and say yeah, that was a good movie. I am not someone who is opposed to a depressing movie. I like depressing movies. I know it's really weird. Some people just can't handle tragedy in movies. I actually really like it because I like it when directors and writers are able to take me as a member of the audience and bring me along the path that they want me to be on. And that's the part of what a movie is, or what a movie has to do to be effective. And that's kind of how I judge movies and how I appreciate them. And in Marriage Story, I felt like going into this movie that I should have been, or leaving this movie that I should have been a little bit more on their side, but it was incredibly hard to be on either of their sides. They're just so incredibly selfish, and I know that they both have like made mistakes, and when your partner like does something that really really irks you and you just like cannot deal with it, cannot live with it, I understand that like a lot of marriages end in divorce, and that's a really really sad thing. So I think that this story like is planted in very very rich grounds that just is involved in like so many of our lives. If we, our parents or ourselves, had not been involved in divorce, we know someone like not too far, an arm's distance away from each other, who has been touched by divorce, or a relative or a friend or whoever. It's a very very hard thing to go through, and this story just kind of feels like it doesn't really reach to those like specifically harmful points, because these two characters are incredibly selfish, and they just don't feel like they're ever making any decisions that are, based on anything besides their own self-interest. And I'm not saying I didn't feel any emotions in this movie at all. I felt bad for the kid. They have a child, and, they're obviously kind of going through this divorce process, and that's the messiest part of divorces. I think that they got that part right, because parents can be extremely selfish in divorce. So authenticity and effectiveness, sure, good there. As far as having your two main characters be unlikable people, I just can't like walk away from this movie and feel like, oh, that was enjoyable, or oh, like that was really effective. These two people are like disgusting. They're also written in a way that is very, centered for Hollywood audiences. Adam Driver's character is a director, on Broadway, or, on the East Coast. He's directing plays. And then Scarlett Johansson's character was, a young actress who kind of got married to Adam Driver at a young age and followed him and is joining in him in all of his plays, but is looking for a life back in Hollywood and LA so that she can get her career started again. These two people are just like so niche, like into the Hollywood sphere, that it's hard for like normal people get divorces too. We don't have to have it focused around these, Hollywood elitist people that are just focused on their own careers and their own lives. They don't care about anyone besides themselves, not even their friggin' kid. And because of all these people in Hollywood, they've already had like 4 divorces already. They're going to watch this movie and they're going to be like, oh yes, this movie is so accurate. And these people just had to, split up because of their own career goals. It's like, dude, did you ever hear about anything that's more important than like fame and money and your own success? How about the things that are really important, like family, your spouse, and your kids, and things that actually matter? This movie just feels like these two characters are just focusing on everything that doesn't matter, and it's hard to take away kind of like a moral good out of this movie. You can watch it, and as I watched it, I was like, okay, you don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that, you don't do that in your marriage. And that's pretty much like how I walked away from it. It's like a cautionary tale of like how hideous this process can be and how hideous two people can be. But this movie didn't really need to be that way. I just felt like the writers kind of made it that way, this kind of depressing mess where these two people are just so focused on their careers that they can't even look past themselves or have any sort of room for growth. It's just kind of like this, snowball rolling down a hill towards this house, and you're like, well, there's the house. It's not going to move, and the snowball is not going to stop, so let's just watch this horrible thing unfold. Another frustrating thing about the story in this movie is that they paint this marriage so horribly that I feel like this is just Hollywood's kind of acceptance of what marriage is that all it is just pain and eventual divorce. That really is not the case. Marriage is a great thing, and it doesn't need to be this disgusting, muddy, dirty thing that they're portraying it to be in this movie. It can be that way a lot of times if people are so incredibly selfish. They're not able to sacrifice for, their spouse or their family and their kids, and they're just so focused on what they want. I just feel like there's no ultimate good that can come out of seeing a movie like this or making a movie like this. I think that it could have been a lot better if, even after the end of it, I'm not saying it had to end perfectly, but at least show the characters having some big form of regret. Towards the end of this movie, there are kind of some emotional payoffs that they go for, but it didn't feel like it nudged the characters any which way. It just made it feel like they were just kind of digging up some old emotions, but not really like they were growing in any way. I just kind of got frustrated with the end of this movie. Sorry for the depressing review, but it's a depressing movie. So unfortunately, I didn't love Marriage Story, and I think that Marriage Story is a waste of time.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Sorry about this downer review, but get a pick-me-up and watch a Christmas movie. I love watching Home Alone, Home Alone 2, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or Dr. Seuss's, or the one with Jim Carrey in it, that Grinch. And Santa Claus. If you have a Christmas movie, pop that one in. Don't watch Marriage Story. Watch a happy movie. Please leave a like on this video. I would appreciate it. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Tell all of your friends about how awesome my channel is and how enriching it is to your life. Follow me on Instagram at Jared Gilster, and I'll see you guys next time.